stock for you. Oh boy, do we have a stock for you that had options yesterday, unusual options that maybe said something about what they're going to do. I don't know. Is it Robinhood? Huh. We'll see you in a second. Great to be back with you, Mark. I know you were with us just the other day. It was great. And then I jumped on with that guy who looks a heck of a lot like me in the ship out there somewhere at sea. And he continues to be on that ship, although he's entertaining a lot of people with what he's doing. What is it called again? Masterminds or something like that?
Yeah. So he was invited at the last minute by some friends of ours in Puerto Rico to join them on this mastermind cruise. It's actually getting paid for it, believe it or not. Where a bunch of rich entrepreneurs pay money to be on a ship with industry leaders, people that have been very successful at their craft, hear them speak, hobnob, network, do that kind of thing. He claims it's work. He's floating somewhere off the island of Antigua, one of my favorite places in the Caribbean right now, but we'll be back next week.
Feel awful for him. He always gets the tough jobs in life. It's amazing. All right, Mark, let's just jump right into the macro minute. Here's where we're going to go. I'm going to start her off with a little PPI action. Now, we get the numbers. They exceeded what people were expecting. There really was a muted reaction early on, and then it started to kind of flow a little bit, and we've seen a lot of movement there, and it makes a lot of sense. That core PPI still was a little bit hotter, or whatever you want to use as your way of describing it, to the estimates themselves. But I think that's another one of these data points that we keep waiting for, because everything is about the Fed, and that's the market we're in right now.
Yeah, Pete, there's no doubt about it. And listen, the top line number was double the street's estimate. It wasn't just a slight hot reading. It was a red hot reading. When you come in, double. The street looking for 3, the number, the print coming out this morning at 6, spot 6, to be very clear. And yes, when you look at the core, that's, of course, X food and energy, not as bad, spot 3, street was looking for spot 2. But when you sprinkle on the employment numbers that came out this morning, showing less new employment applications than the market was hoping for, that means the employment picture remains stronger than the Fed would like. I think that's why you saw pop on the open and then the market going, wait a minute, maybe that wasn't such great news. And yeah, you're right. This is one of the last significant prints. Well, certainly of the 2 or 3 majors, the PPI, the CPI, and the PCE, the trifecta of what the Fed looks at. This is the last of the 3 before the next Fed meeting. So definitely important stuff.
Yep, definitely important. Next on, and we got the fantastic futures. And I'll tell you,
fantastic futures.
Mark, I've been talking about this one for a long time. John and I have been talking about cocoa for a while now. And it's because it's not just about sweeteners. That's what everybody thinks, but it's not. It's also about medicine. And there's a lot of different things that are going on. And I'll tell you what, because of weather and because of the demand, it is absolutely ripping to the upside, and it has been. And we just want to continue to, give folks a little bit of a what's happening in that whole space, because it is absolutely explosive moves to the upside. 1 year up 183%. Year to date, it's up almost 80%. So I know that everybody likes to talk about NVIDIA. Everybody wants to talk about all these different stocks. Let me tell you, the cocoa world is on fire. They are ripping to the upside.
Yeah, remarkable. My fantastic future today is oil. Brent, WTI, I think we're exceeding $81 a barrel just before we went on. That on the heels of the IEA's report that is actually updating the demand picture for the balance of the year. That, of course, drives oil prices higher, and the unrest in the Middle East and with the Houthi rebels in the Red Sea and all of that disrupting the supply chain, that ain't helping matters.
No. Well, let's just jump on to what we've got in front of us right now, because I'm so excited about what's going on. Robinhood. Now, this is a name, not everybody's totally familiar with it, but I think everybody has at least heard of it to some degree. And I can tell you this, Mark, it hit a new 52-week high today. Absolutely incredible move to the upside. You can credit this to a lot of various things and a lot of excitement that people have, but But I would say crypto is definitely something that actually goes into this and a lot of these employees. But in the pre-market, all of a sudden we started seeing a lot of different analysts out there, Bernstein being one of them. Bernstein put a $30 target on him. By the way, the 52-week high is 1922. We had a big spike. We also had some unusual option activity that was pretty incredible yesterday, literally yesterday. And it was 18,000 of the March 18 calls were getting bought. They were going for a big 15 cents. Well, today those numbers hit 130 mark on this big spike. So if people wonder why we follow this unusual option activity, I think that's a pretty good reason right there.
I love it, and it's a well-deserved victory lap for everybody that subscribes to that service, saw that and acted. And yeah, Pete, it is definitely all good in the hood for Robinhood. And it's not just crypto, although that was up, I think, about 10% on a crypto volume of almost $7 billion quarter over quarter. But you talk about options even greater as a percentage basis, up 12% overall trading volume quarter over quarter. Assets under management in the hood just crossed almost $19 billion total. They're doing something right. And this is one, I'll be very honest with you, I've been dubious about it. I've been a Robinhood bear from time to time. They might be getting it right. They seem to have gotten the regulators off their back for the time being. So, yeah, I don't know if I'm on board with that $30 price target,
right?
But it probably has more room to go from here.
I think I agree with you on that. And I would also say when you look at the February numbers themselves and what they were doing from the transaction standpoint, I mean, absolutely off the charts. Really, really strong performance. Yeah. Next, we got UiPath. Now, this is not a name that we talk about a whole heck of a lot. There's IT, it's system software, all that type of thing. But the brokers are out there right now, Mark, and they're out there changing their price targets. Everybody seems to have gotten pretty aggressive. But the one thing they forgot about was, well, when you really look at things, they did put up some great numbers. They did have record revenues. We're talking about earnings right now. They were very, very strong. Somewhere along the line, something did change, though, and I think the interpretation of what their guide looked like is part of it. And other than that, I can't really find anything because most of this looked great. Stock popped, and then it dropped. Last I looked, Mark, we were down about 7%. Now, this is a stock that was up about that much. So it's an incredible ride from the pre-market to where we are right now. But I think a little bit of it has to be something to do with the outlook itself. And maybe it's for the quarter, not the year, but for the quarter coming.
Yeah, you're probably right about that, Pete. And this kind of whipsaw movement from the pre to where we are, not even halfway through the day or about halfway through the day now, is another reason why, all of the DDA and shorten your swing that you guys talk about in all of our courses over at Market Rebellion, so important because you can't just set it, forget it, and hope that something like this doesn't happen. I will tell you, though, on this particular company, I like this one. These guys are in and are among the leaders in something called computer vision. Computer vision essentially uses AI and data, you'll see that theme coming up again, to do really interesting things with what were traditionally sort of linear cameras, right? You point a camera at something, say a port or a major cargo terminal of some kind, and you're looking at the video, and a human is going to say, yes, I see a truck, I see a car, etc. Computer vision actually does the watching for you and tells the user what it is that the camera is looking at. This is a huge advance in AI. It's a huge advance in data. These guys have some really good stuff. If it gets beat up a little more, Pete, I might be tempted to pick some up because I think there's really only upside for these guys. Maybe not in the next month. It's probably a longer-term view, but I wouldn't count this company out.
I totally agree with you. I think it's really interesting. And like I say, really had to pick through to find what it is that people are negative about because most everything else looked great. And to your point, these days, by the way, all you do is say, well, AI, and people start buying. They don't care. They don't listen. They outright just jump. All right. Yep. Speaking of jumping, we're going to go to Citigroup. Now, this is a stock that I've been talking about for the last maybe 3 months or so because nobody's paying attention to what the stock is doing, which is an unbelievable move from the bottom left to the upper right. I mean, this follows right into that category. $39 3 months ago. Here it is, 58. And as a matter of fact, 58.67. That's a brand new 52-week high for Citi. So it's made an incredible run, and it trades underneath book value. So This is one of those where it's a financial that's been off to the races, but it's not necessarily priced like that, like you'd probably expect. So there's a lot to do with that. I also think that there's a lot to do with some of the ratings that are coming out, and suddenly the analysts now finally said, you know what, something's going on with Citi. Now price targets are going a little bit higher. This is one that we're going to continue to watch closely. And oh, by the way, again, we did have call buying in here just the other day, yesterday, the March 28th expiring calls, and it was the 58s. They were $1.10. They hit $1.55 today. We'll see where they end up at the end of the day. But that's like, as Marc said, you've got to be very, very disciplined, and you've got to see when things are moving. When they're moving, you got to react, and that's what the options world is all about.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And listen, Citibank definitely, I think, one of those maybe less glamorous of the bank stocks. And with the smaller regionals stealing the headlines recently, not for good reasons, it's kind of understandable as to how the market would overlook this. And anytime you've got a financial that trades below the book, you got to take a harder look at whether or not the stock is properly priced. That's actually a theme we're going to pick up on again in another segment later in the show.
Sure. Next up, we're going to hit a little Momo for you, Marc. I mean, this is one that, wow, Hello Group is having a little bit of an issue right now. And it's not so much hello, it's goodbye, as you can see right there, because this thing's getting hammered pretty good. And it hit new 52-week lows today. We were just talking about 52-week highs. Now we're hitting 52-week lows. And it seems like it might be for the right reasons, Marc. When I look through these numbers, how about if I told you monthly active users declined significantly? Momo says their app has also declined significantly. The paying of users down significantly. The guide for the revenues is decreasing. I mean, just about every metric that you can come up with. Now, somebody came out and said, well, they had mixed results. I don't see much of a mix. I see nothing but negatives right now. And I'm not being, bearish about the company. I'm just saying that what they gave us, it sure didn't look very good. And I'm not sure that this is one that I'm saying, hey, look, that's enough. End of story. No. I need to buy it. I don't see that. I'm not sure where I'll see that, Marc.
It's mixed results, Pete. It's a mix of negative results. There's negative, there's really negative, there's horrendously negative. You get a mix. You can choose there. Look, part of this company's problem, okay, is their primary market is in China. We know what's going on with the Chinese economy. It's very hard to sort of advance. This is a company that is a brokerage. You can trade there. I think their brokerage is called Momo. It's pretty sizable, but one that I had not heard of. And I think they're having a lot of trouble expanding outside of China. They're having trouble keeping the clients and the customers within China. A lot of pressure on the younger demographic in China, which of course is the growth demographic for a trading firm. So I'm going to say no on Momo for the foreseeable future.
I'm right there with you. Marc, I think you got something you wanted to share with everybody real quick.
Yeah, I do, Pete. And this is our small cap spotlight segment, something that we do occasionally. Wow, look at the beautiful graphic that Jared created for us. Wonderful producer. Thank you, sir. And this was one that we thought, it's a company that John and I have been advising and been shareholders to. We've got some disclaimers at the top to watch and to read, of course, so we understand what's going on here. But this is a company that John and I have been hanging around the hoop for almost 2 years now. They're in the DeFi space. They offer a suite of financial products, including ETPs, exchange-traded products. They're offered in Europe, similar to ETFs that are based on a lot of crypto and DeFi. They've got an infrastructure venture fund that invests in the picks and shovels. And this is one that is trading at a very significant discount to their assets under management. The firm has, I think, about $970 million approaching that magic billion-dollar mark in AUM, and the stock just ain't reflecting that. And as we see with all of the stocks that have benefited from the recent crypto bull run, led, of course, by Bitcoin, but Bitcoin not alone, stocks with like the miners, like Marathon and Hut, another company that we've worked with in the past. Michael Saylor, of course, benefiting his company, MicroStrategy, benefiting very well. You got to say, well, there are others that have not yet been bid up, and there are some out there. So that's our small cap spotlight. DeFi Technologies, DEFTF, I believe, is the symbol. But Jared will have all of that in the disclaimer. So that's our small cap spotlight for today.
Love it, Marc. That's awesome. All right, Jared, are we ready for a little bit of There he is. There's Greeny. Let's hear what he has to say.
The direction this thing is going, you can just see it and feel it. The first three teams are all the first three picks.
Greeny's so good, so crisp, so
who's
polished.
gonna make
I
those
think
picks.
he really does a great
I think
job.
it'll be Chicago, Washington, and then someone. I'm not convinced it's going to be New England.
Mark, every year these guys screw
I
up.
think someone is
They
going to
end up going with the wrong quarterback in the first pick. It's always the guys behind that are a little bit better than who they think.
Picking at 5. Neither one of them need a quarterback. The value in this draft, I believe, is going to become McCarthy.
I love J.J. McCarthy.
I don't think teams are trading up.
Problem is he a systems guy?
Because Rome Odunze, I think there are going to be teams in the NFL who think he's just as good.
It's a tough one to answer, honestly. The kid's very good. He's smart. He's great. I mean, you see him, but is it all the guys around him?
Arizona
he's
and
got
the Chargers.
Great running
Trade
back.
back a little bit, a few picks, still
Great
get a really good wide receiver, and get a bunch
receiver.
more stuff. Teams are going to look at the Giants as the team they have to get in front of. And so I believe 5 is the pressure point for J.J. McCarthy.
Wow. Well, that's a hefty call, man, because it's a deep group of quarterbacks, deep group of wide receivers. I think more likely than not, he's correct about going for the quarterbacks. But it's one of those things, Mark. One of the things that I always talk about with people is, there are quarterbacks. Take a look at a lot of these Alabama quarterbacks. There are quarterbacks that are great in college, and they deserve all the accolades that they get. But is it the system with a great offensive line, great tight ends, great wide receivers, and a great running game? Or is it a quarterback that's making great plays? So it's a difficult thing, I think, for these general managers. Obviously, it's difficult. I mean, we just saw this past week, there was a trade from New England to Jacksonville of a quarterback who just a couple of years ago, Mac Jones, the guy was pretty high pick in the first round. And they sent him basically a bag of balls and a 6th-round pick. I mean, honestly, it's unbelievable. But
didn't turn out quite how they were expecting in the season, did it?
That's a tough swing and a tough miss, man. And it's a lot of money, and now you start over again, which they are doing. That's exactly what they're one of the teams that's going to be in that top 3. It looks like. All right. So I wanted to just throw in something here. I thought it would be kind of fun. I like to look at the dawn of a dynasty. And what I mean by that is South Dakota State. Now, not everybody knows about this school and everything. Academically, by the way, it's a very solid school. Athletically, how about this? Their football team, they've been to the national championship game 3 of the last 4 years. They've won 2 national titles at the FCS level. They've got 12 players that are in the NFL. And oh, by the way, they probably got 5 or 6 more this year. They're going to be going to the NFL. And then next year going into the NFL. So you don't have to go to Alabama. You don't got to go to USC. You don't have to go to Washington or Michigan or Ohio State. They'll find you. If you're an athlete, they'll find you. And I on top of this, Mark, they're now going to their second big dance in basketball as well, because they won again last night, their conference championship. So I just look at what they're doing, and I like to call it the Davids versus the Goliaths, because when you look at this school, they're doing an amazing job on the sports side. And as I said, it's a damn good the academic side of this school is there as well. Who do you got?
Well, Pete, I had to dig deep about this dawn of a dynasty thing, and I like to go a little further, maybe downstream than you. And I selected a Jesuit school from Spokane, Washington, named Gonzaga. They are not to be underestimated. Fantastic up-and-coming coach. Has been there a long time, Mark View. Their offense rated number 9. The team overall ranked 15th nationally. But I think watching them very carefully this year, as we get into, of course, March Madness, very exciting time for NCAA ball. That would be the school that I have my eye on.
Yeah, they're amazing. I've had a lot of friends whose sons have gone and played basketball there. They're not a football school, but they're basketball every year, right? I mean, everybody always knows somewhere in there, Gonzaga is going to be there, maybe even at the top spot. It's an incredible thing that they've built out there. It just shows you don't got to be the biggest and the baddest and the biggest amount of money and everything else. Sometimes it's about a really good coach, his recruiting of the right players, and all the rest of that. And they've done an amazing job. All right, Mark, how about this next one? Free agency started. It started long before. You and I were talking about this and how they can tamper and it's not really tampering and everything, and they schedule it all out. But it is an interesting thing. It's an amazing thing with the NFL. I wanted to to just shoot you a couple of numbers and see what you think of this. The New York Giants have spent $187 million in the last 36 hours or so. Kansas City Chiefs, $184 million. Atlanta Falcons, $180 million. Carolina, $175 million. Vegas has got a big number as well. Wilkins, their defensive tackle, is a big chunk of it. He got a 4-year, $110 million deal. So the numbers are there, but I guess the question I'd throw out your way maybe would be this. Is it worth it? Have they done the right thing? Are they overspending? Now, they did get more money because the cap space moved a lot higher because of the TV numbers are just outrageous for the NFL. I mean, this past season we were talking about, they had anywhere between 93 and 97 of the top 100 watched. So the NFL is crushing it. They are absolutely crushing it. I like what the Atlanta Falcons did because the one thing that they didn't have, Mark, is a quarterback. And that's a problem in the NFL. You've got to have a quarterback. We all know that. But, the reality is they just didn't have any, but they got a great tight end, got a great running back in Bijan Robinson. They've got a really good offensive line. They've got a decent defense they need to build, but they didn't have a quarterback. So that might be one of the biggest